Porsche. I'm glad you showed up today. We need to have a talk.
That's going up on YouTube tonight.
Welcome back to the Plays with Cars YouTube channel and another episode of Project Porsche. This car right here is our 986 Porsche Boxster S. This car has been a project car on this channel literally since the beginning. This is what we started the channel with. It was our first project car, and it's been through a lot. So longtime viewers of the channel know this is our Porsche Boxster S. It's a 986 generation, so the first generation of Boxster. And we built this originally as a dedicated autocross car for SCCA C Street competition. So the modifications allowed are very, very limited. You can put 200 triple tires on, like these Bridgestone RE71Rs. You can do replacement shocks, but they have to be like OE style, so we've got some just off-the-shelf Coneys on there. You can do one sway bar, not both, just one, which is a weird old-school throwback rule. And a couple other little things. You can do like a catback, replace an air filter, little things like that. But you can't change anything on it really of substance. Okay, you can't tune the car. You can't do coilovers. You can't even do springs. Like I said, you can only do the one sway bar. You can't even put wider wheels on. You have to run the stock width wheels, which is why we have literally stock wheels on this car. That way there is no question whatsoever about our wheel width and stuff like that, because even like having your offset off by more than, I think it's like 10 millimeters or something like that, it's ridiculous. The SCCA rulebook is large, it is complicated, and it's very, very old school. But we did it, we built the car, we competed in C Street, we brought it to our first national tour, did a national pro solo with it, did a full season of autocross. Then the pandemic happened, and we had 2020. In 2020, we tried to get the car out. We're up here in the Pacific Northwest, where all of this stuff kind of started. We've been under way more lockdown than everybody else. In fact, we are still really locked down. So getting out to events was a challenge. A lot of events just plain didn't happen. But the events that did happen, we tried to make it out to what we could. We did, I think, 3 events with it last season, and did all right. We actually had more fun doing Porsche Club autocross, and it runs in a different class in Porsche Club. They have different levels of prep that make a lot more sense. They've got absolute factory production, like exactly how it came off the factory, including the tires. There's a lot of guys that run those. And then they have basically like a street class, but it allows for a lot more smarter modifications. You can do both sway bars, for example. And then you move up from there. We had a lot of fun with those guys, thinking about trying that again. And now 2020 has come along, or 2021 has come along. This season, our schedules and the local and regional autocross schedules just don't match at all. There is like literally 0 events that we can make it to whatsoever. And so I got kind of really bummed out, and I was really like down and like, oh, what am I going to do with this car? Because my whole big thing was I was going to like reinvest in C Street. We got a set of JRZ shocks for this thing, a one-of-a-kind set from a previous national trophy winning car back when they were in Superstock. And we were going to do some other changes because like we have not done one of the sway bars yet. So putting a GT3 front bar on this thing to get the nose to stick. All these other changes to it that we can do to really try to dial it in and really kind of go after C Street. But if we can't make it to any of the events, what's the point? And then it hit me. Time trials. So for those of you who don't know, time trials is another word for time attack. It's kind of like a cross between autocross and a track day. So you get out on track. It's a big track. In this case, our first event is at Portland International Raceway, which is a large road course in Portland. The IndyCar comes and runs at, among other things. They hosted IMSA forever. Probably will do that again soon. So real tracks doing real track work. But instead of door-to-door racing like you would with, say, SCCA regional stuff. Hey, Shadow. Everybody say hi to Shadow. Shadow keeps our mouse problem down. Anyways, it's not like running door to door. You don't have to have a cage. You're not running with somebody like in a Spec Miata race, something like that. It's just you on the track. Don't get me wrong, there's other cars, but you're not running door to door. What you're worried about is your own time. It's like autocross. You're trying to set your own best time, your best single lap. And that's what time trial is. And so it's like a track day, except for they actually count for something, which is really, really, really intriguing to me because I've done a ton of track days. I've done a ton of track night in America. I really like track driving, but I'm not ready to roll cage a car and buy a trailer and a truck and do all of that ridiculous stuff to go competing on a track like that. So here I have a perfect opportunity to build a time trials car. So obviously one of the first things you have to ask about time trials is, wait a minute, you're going to go out on track, you're going to go bombing around, it's a convertible, it's open top, it's soft. So the rules are pretty explicit with this. If your car is a soft top and it's from before 2006, it has to have a roll bar in it, unless it has factory rollover protection. Now, the Boxster does have factory rollover protection. These bars right here, these are not for show. They're not plastic. These are a structural member of the car. Porsche rates this car as rollover safe. So it's got reinforced A-pillars here, and it's got these double halo bars in the back. It's totally good to go. And you sit so low in the thing, I am below the height of these bars. So if anything really drastic were to happen, knock on wood, I would be okay. The car would do its job. So the Porsche Boxster is one of the ones that's accepted out of the box. Now, that being said, we are going to be safe. Obviously, helmet, fireproof gloves, all that kind of stuff. I'm actually looking at doing a fire system or fire extinguisher in the car. I've seen a lot of race car fires lately, and it's on my mind. So definitely looking into that. And you can always up safety. What that means is in the rule book, there's like a minimum level of safety that you have to have for each classification. But you can always go above that safety for no penalty. So if I want to roll cage this car, it will not change my class at all. Now, if I try to bring it to an autocross and run C Street, that wouldn't be allowed anymore. But for time trials, it is. So in time trials with SCCA, there are 4 basic categories. You have Sport, Tuner, Max, and Unlimited. And there's a raft of modifications you can do for each of them. That means even at your very lowest level, quote unquote, but like your entry level class in Sport, there's a lot more modifications you can do than, for example, in street class in autocrossing. In Sport, you can do springs, you can do shocks, you can do sway bars, you can do wheels, you can do tires, cold air intake, even just a basic ECU flash tune on there. Like, it's more like a street touring spec than, it'd be like putting this car in STR instead of C Street, which is really cool that we can run that in Sport. So our particular car runs in Sport 4. Some of the other cars in that class that look like they might be a challenge for us depending on the track is a regular Subaru WRX, no STIs, just WRXs, a couple of Acuras and Hondas and things like that. There's no other really sports cars or rear-wheel drive cars or anything like that. I think a couple of BMWs, but basically it looks like we've kind of got the car to have for that particular category at this moment. So, you know what? Let's give it a shot. So the one thing we are going to have to change in order to run the event in April is our rear tires. In autocross, in the street category, you run your factory size wheels, but you could put any tire that will fit on that wheel is perfectly acceptable, which means instead of running the factory 265s on the back, we have 275 Bridgestone RE71Rs. The problem being in the prep rules for the sport class in time trial, 265 is the max we can have in Sport 4. So if we have anything wider than that, we are going to move up a category, and we don't want to do that. So I ordered some new tires from Tire Rack. They're already on their way. They should be delivered tomorrow to PRE Racing, and we will get those mounted up on these wheels, take these off, and we'll be good to go. The fronts are fine. They are just 235s on there, and yeah, we'll be good to go with just that modification. So there is one other thing I have to do, and that's the front brakes. You see, this car actually has a really good track setup on it now with these Hawk pads and the factory Porsche rotors. The problem being they are scored to crap from autocross. These pads did not like autocross. They work really well. Like, don't get me wrong, this car absolutely freaking stops on a dime. It almost hurts it stops so hard. But the brakes kind of get hot really fast. They dust I mean, you could see the dust on this thing is just insane. And frankly, like, it actually dusted so bad that it sucked dust into the air intake and fouled the mass airflow sensor. We had to change that. Like, that's how badly these things dust. So I don't want to be breathing all that in and all that stuff. And also, they're just not suitable for it. So I do have a completely new brake setup to put on the front, all new rotors, all new pads. So I will get that done as well before the track. So I know viewers that are familiar with our fleet are going, why are you choosing that car for time trials and not that car for time trials? Well, truth be told, that one's all stock. And I don't know if any of you have ever driven a stock Z06, but they need a little bit of work from stock before they can really handle track work like that. These C5 models don't suffer from the engine issues that the C6s did, but you still have to worry about coolers and oils and things like that. Brakes is kind of a biggie. The big thing with this particular one, though, is it's frankly just a little too nice. This car's only got 49,000 miles on it. And it's actually in like immaculate condition, and turning it into a track route would just kind of be dumb. Because what I could do is sell this car for a whole bunch of money, buy a C5 Z06 that's got a ton of miles or a branded title or is already a track car for way less money, and have like a bunch of money in the bank to use to modify it more and turn it into a real big track car. So it kind of just doesn't make sense to do this particular one. It's not so much C5 Z06s, it's just this one. I kind of paid a whole bunch for it because it is a really nice and a really rare color car. And if I'm going to go out and smash on track, that's not really the car to do. Plus, I'm not as familiar with this car. I've only had it for a few months. I've drag raced it once. I've never done a track day in it or an autocross or anything like that. This car, I've got thousands of miles in. I've done a ton of stuff with it, so I feel super, super comfortable with it. I know exactly how it responds, and me being familiar with the car is going to make it where I get to focus on the track and not on the car. If I took this to the track, I would be worried about learning this car and trying to figure out how to drive the Z06 on the track and keep it, going the right way around and stuff like that. And so I wouldn't really be focusing on my lap times. I wouldn't be focusing on what I'm supposed to, which is learning the track, setting my best lap time. With this car, I'm so comfortable with the car, I'm so familiar with it, I don't have to worry a thing about it. I could just go out there and focus on my track work. Am I hitting my apexes? Am I tracking out of the corners right? Am I nailing my shifts? Am I thinking of all the things I'm needing to think of to really put in my best lap and not thinking about the car? I'm like, well, what's that noise? Or why is it slipping in this corner? Or like, wow, my brakes are fading all of a sudden. I don't know why. Like, I know where all of those points are in this car. So the long and the short of it is, it's time to say goodbye to C Street. No matter what happens with the track event, this car in its current form isn't going to stay. Having all of the limitations in the SCCA C Street class just isn't really working for us, especially when the Indy Miatas are getting faster and faster and they just allow them to stay in the class. It was one thing to race against the Indy ones. We had a shot there. We really did. Did well, got close to the trophies at National Tour, but Indy 2s are just way too fast for most autocross courses, and most autocross courses, even at National Tour level, aren't long enough for us to have our gearing advantage, where they would have to shift into third and we could stay in second all the way up to 78 miles an hour. It's not an advantage. Most autocross courses for SCCA right now are so short that frankly we're at a disadvantage because we're not in our torque band down low coming out of the corners. So it's just, for us, C Street, this platform, I just don't think it's the right call anymore. And that is one thing about having a project car that's built for a class. Sometimes the class moves on and you either need to move on with it to a different class or to a different car. So that's what we're doing here. The Boxer is not giving up autocross by any means. We'll definitely be trying to hit up some PCA events this season and run whatever class we are in there, and then probably move up to their improved classing when we get this thing all dialed in for time trial. and then obviously SCCA will still run. We'll probably end up in STR, but maybe there's a chance for Extreme Street. We'll see where we end up landing with the time trial stuff. But for us, basically, SCCA Autocrossing is done with for us as far as competitively. We'll go autocrossing. We'll probably end up honestly bringing that to the autocrosses now more often, just to run time only or something like that and have some fun in. But when it comes to competition, we are going full bore into time trial. This car is hitting the big track. We are going to do some really awesome fun things. And the very first event is coming up here in just a couple of days. So I need to get off my butt and get to work. So until next time, that's been Project Porsche here on the Plays with Cars YouTube channel. See you in the next one.